Human beings have lived with dogs for thousands of years. You'd think that after all that time, we'd have discovered all there is to know about them. But it turns out that until recently, scientists didn't pay much attention to dogs. Dolphins have been studied for decades, apes and chimps as well, but dogs, with whom we share our lives, were never thought to be worthy of serious study. As a result, we know very little about what actually goes on inside dogs' brains. Do they really love us, or are dogs just licking us so they can get fed? How much of our language can they understand? Before you answer, we want you to meet Chaser, who's been called the smartest dog in the world.
Yeah, we're going to Wofford. Hoop. Good girl, good girl, good girl.
86-year-old retired psychology professor John Pilley and his border collie Chaser are inseparable.
We're almost there. We're almost there. Can you speak? Speak. Speak. Good girl, good girl.
Do you view Chaser as a family pet, as a friend? How do you see Chaser?
She's our child.
She's your child?
She's our child, a member of the family. Oh, yes. She comes first.
Many people think of their dogs as children, but John Pilley has been teaching her like a child as well. By assigning names to toys,
Okay, Chase.
Pilley has been helping Chaser learn words and simple sentences.
Take KG.
He's been teaching her up to 5 hours a day,
Yes. Tub.
5 days a week for the past 9 years.
My best metaphor is this is a 2-year-old toddler.
That's how you think about your dog, a 2-year-old toddler.
Yeah. She has the capabilities of a 2-year-old. Chicken, chicken, chicken. Where's chicken?
He's not kidding.
Yes, good girl.
Most 2-year-old toddlers
In tub.
know about 300 words.
Figure eight, figure eight. Good girl, that's figure eight.
Chaser's vocabulary
Good girl, good
is
girl.
3 times that.
To tub.
She's learned the names of more than 1,000 toys. And all of those toys add up.
Wheel, yes, bring it out.
To show us Chaser's collection, Pilley brought us to his back porch. So these are all the toys in here?
Yes.
You got a chicken in here. Okay. Is it all right if I dump them out?
Please do, please do.
Okay. There are 800 cloth animals, 116 different balls, and more than 100 plastic toys. 1,022 toys in all, each with a unique name. So Chaser could recognize the names of every one of these toys.
That's true, that's true.
To prove it, Pilley cataloged the toys, and then, over the course of 3 years, gave Chaser hundreds of tests like this.
Chaser, find circle, find circle.
In every test, Chaser correctly identified 95% or more of the toys.
Find circle, Chase. Yeah.
The results were published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal, and a star was born.
How are you?
Good to see you.
I'm so glad to see you.
Chaser even landed a book deal.
You too.
But John Pilley didn't stop with the names of toys.
Nose KG, nose KG. Knows it, knows it. Good girl.
He's taught Chaser that nouns and verbs have different meanings
Paw it, paw it, paw
and
it.
can be combined in a variety of ways.
Take wheel. Do it, go, do it. Okay, out, out. Chase, take KG. Do it, good girl, good girl.
So she's actually understanding the difference between take, paw, putting her paw on something, and putting her nose on something.
Right, and that's what we're demonstrating.
All this learning has been possible, Pilley says, because of a breakthrough Chaser had when she was just a puppy. At a certain point, she realized that objects have names.
Right, it was an insight. It came to her.
How could you tell that she'd suddenly had that insight?
Well, it was in the 5th month, and she'd learned about 40 names, and the time necessary to work with her kept getting shorter and shorter.
She was starting to learn words faster and faster?
Yes.
It's the closest thing in animals we've seen to being like what young children do as they're learning words.
Brian Hare, an evolutionary anthropologist at Duke University, believes Chaser is the most important dog in the history of modern scientific research.
This is very serious science. We're not talking about stupid pet tricks where people have spent, hours trying to just, train a dog to do the same thing over and over. What's neat about what Chaser's doing is Chaser is learning tons, literally thousands of new things by using the same ability that kids use when they learn lots of words.
He's talking about what researchers call social inference, a capability humans, like Hare's son Luke, acquire around age 1. To demonstrate the concept, Hare hides a ball under one of these 2 cups.
Hey, looky guy, where is it? Can you get it? Can you get the ball?
Luke doesn't know which cup the ball is under,
Can you get it?
but when his father points, he makes an inference. Hey, nice job.
You got it.
So what does that show you?
So when kids his age start understanding pointing, it's right when the foundations of what lead to language and culture start to develop. Hey.
It might look simple, but when Hare tried the same test with bonobos, great apes he studied for more than a decade, look what happened. Bonobos, our closest genetic relatives, can't do it.
You chose the wrong one.
But Hare discovered dogs can.
You ready? All right, I'm gonna hide in one of these two places.
This 2-year-old Labrador named Sisu has no trouble understanding the meaning of pointing. Now, she doesn't know for sure which place you put it.
That's right. There's no way she could know, and I'm just gonna tell her where it is. Okay, Sisu. So that's really hard for a lot of animals, and that's what's really special about dogs is they're really similar to even human toddlers.
That's a level of thinking that people didn't really think dogs could do.
Right. I mean, there was no evidence until the last decade that dogs were capable of inferential reasoning. Absolutely not. So that's what's new. That's what's shocking is that of all the species, it's dogs that are showing a couple of abilities that are really important that allow humans to develop culture and language.
It's not surprising that dogs share characteristics with humans. After all, we've evolved alongside each other for more than 15,000 years. There are now some 80 million dogs in this country, more dogs than children. But for all the playing and petting, the companionship, we still know very little about their brains. Dr. Greg Burns, a physician and neuroscientist at Emory University, has studied the human brain for more than 2 decades. But 3 years ago, questions he had about his own dog inspired him to start looking at the canine brain.
It started out with the desire to know, really, what does my dog think of me? I love my dog, but do they reciprocate in any way? When they hear you come home, they start jumping around. Is it just because they expect you to feed them? Is this just a scam by the dogs?
Are dogs just big scammers?
Yeah.
To try and answer that question, Dr. Burns is doing something scientists have had a difficult time with. He's conducting brain scans on dogs while they're awake and unsedated. Inside the fMRI machine, they're trained to stay completely still. How hard is it to get a dog to do this?
This represents probably about 3 to 4 months of training, and so most of the dogs take that long.
What's around Tigger's head here?
The scanner makes a lot of noise. It's quite loud, and because dogs' hearing is more sensitive than ours, we have to protect their hearing just like ours. So we put earplugs and earmuffs and just wrap it all to just keep it in place.
Okay, now we go up.
Tigger certainly knows the drill.
That's good.
Once in the machine, he lies down and doesn't move. These scans are giving Dr. Burns the first glimpse at how a dog's brain actually works. So these are slices of Tigger's brain that you're seeing?
Yeah, exactly. So we're slicing from top to bottom. We analyze them later to see which parts increase in response to the different signals.
While in the scanner, the dogs smell cotton swabs with different scents. First, the underarm sweat of a complete stranger. Next, the sweat of their owner. As Dr. Burns expected, when the dogs sniffed the swabs, the part of their brain associated with smell, an area right behind the nose, activated. It didn't matter what the scent was. But it was when the dogs got a whiff of their owner's sweat that another area of the brain was stimulated, the caudate nucleus, or reward center. Dr. Burns believes that means the dog is experiencing more than the good feeling that comes with a meal. It shows the dog is recognizing somebody extremely important to them. It's the same area in a human brain that activates when we listen to a favorite song or anticipate being with someone we love. So just by smelling the sweat of their owner, it triggers something in a much stronger way than it does with a stranger.
Right, which means that it's a positive feeling, a positive association.
And that's something you can prove through MRIs. It's not just, previously people would say, well, yeah, obviously my dog loves me. I see its tail wagging and it seems really happy when it sees me.
Right. Now we're using the brain as kind of the test to say, okay, when we see activity in these reward centers, that means the dog is experiencing something that it likes or it wants, and it's a good feeling.
My takeaway from this is that I'm not being scammed by my dog.
Did you have that feeling beforehand?
I worry about that all the time. Watch YouTube videos of dogs welcoming home returning service members, and it's easy to see the bond between dogs and their owners.
I miss you too.
Brian Hare says there's even more proof of that bond. It's found in our bloodstreams.
We know that when dogs and humans make eye contact, that actually releases what's known as the love hormone, oxytocin, in both the dog and the human.
It Turns out oxytocin, the same hormone that helps new mothers bond with their babies, is released in both dogs and humans when they play, touch, or look into one another's eyes.
Thank you very much.
What we know now is that when dogs are actually looking at you, they're essentially hugging you with their eyes.
Really?
Yes. And so it's not just that when a dog is making a lot of eye contact with you, that they're just trying to get something from you. It actually probably is just really enjoyable for them because they get an oxytocin or they get an uptick in this love hormone too.
All these new discoveries about dogs have led Brian Hare to create a science-based website called Dognition, where owners can learn to play games to test their dog's brain power. So you're allowing people to do an intelligence test for their dog?
That's exactly right. And the idea, though, is that there's not one type of intelligence. We help you measure things like how your dog communicates, how empathic your dog is your dog cunning, is your dog actually capable of abstract thought, like reasoning.
So there are different kinds of intelligence for dogs, just like with humans?
Absolutely. And so just like some humans are good at English and others are good at math, it's the same for dogs.
When Hare tested his own dog, a mixed breed named Tassie, he was surprised by what he learned.
What I found out was that I had somebody sleeping in my bed that I didn't even know.
Really?
And I didn't know my dog doesn't really rely on its working memory. So if I'm saying sit and stay, I no longer have to wonder why my dog wanders off. He like literally forgot.
So your dog's not the sharpest of dogs?
He did great on communication. He's very communicative.
So he could basically be a TV anchor, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Fetch shirt. Fetch shirt. There we go.
If you're wondering how Chaser did on Brian Hare's intelligence tests, she was off the charts on reasoning and memory. Not surprising, perhaps, considering Chaser is a border collie. Dogs bred specifically for their ability to understand how farmers want their sheep herded. Is Chaser just like an Einstein of dogs?
So that's really fun. Is Chaser somehow special? And I think the idea actually is that no. I mean, when Dr. Pilley chose Chaser, he just randomly took her out of a litter.
Drop, drop.
What's special is that he spent so much time playing these games to help her learn words. But are there lots of Chasers out there? Absolutely.
On your mark, get set, go.
There's going to be a lot of people who see this and are jealous of your relationship with Chaser. I mean, I now think about my own dog and kind of think, wow, I've missed the boat. I haven't sort of helped my dog live up to her potential.
Well, start working with your dog more.
Yeah, you're so sweet.
There's a good chance that many of you watching right now have a dog somewhere nearby. But what do you actually know about where dogs come from? You're probably aware they evolved from wolves, but how and when? It turns out much of that is still a mystery. There are some intriguing clues, however, that have been discovered in the DNA of dogs and wolves, clues that just might give us a better understanding of how they and we evolved. You've heard of survival of the fittest, but a scientist at Duke University says the term that may best describe dogs' evolutionary success is survival of the friendliest. There's no doubt dogs are an evolutionary triumph. There's an estimated billion of them on the planet, and they've nosed their way into every corner of our lives, living with us, working with us,
Yes, kabuhay.
and loving us. What is it you're trying to understand about dogs?
I'm really interested in where dogs come from, and I think it teaches us a lot about where humans came from.
Brian Hare, an evolutionary biologist and author at Duke University, has spent the last 25 years studying animal evolution.
Puppy, look.
I think what really summarizes the link between dog and human evolution is survival of the friendliest.
What about survival of the fittest?
So survival of the fittest is a misconstrual, really, in the public mind of what evolution is. It's like the idea that like the biggest, the strongest are always the one that win.
Might makes right.
Yeah, but not at all. And dogs are exhibit A of this.
Hare says it may be hard to imagine, but that sweet dog you love started out as this. A wild, predatory wolf. And their evolutionary story began at least 20,000 years ago, when humans were hunter-gatherers.
So what we believe happened, and we have science to show some of this, is that wolves chose us. A population of wolves actually became attracted to humans. And they were at an advantage because they were eating garbage, things that people were leaving around home. And that the wolves that sort of basically gave up on being wolfy and hunting and were attracted and friendliest towards humans, they were at a huge advantage.
Some wolves were able to feed off scraps, they weren't aggressive, and over time, they became domesticated.
That's exactly right.
Come on in.
To better understand how the two species diverged so drastically, Brian Hare came here to the Wildlife Science Center in Minnesota.
All right, you want to guard and I'll drag?
Yep.
It's run by director Peggy Callahan and her 23-year-old daughter Meg, both skilled, we saw, at navigating a cage full of hungry wolves.
Back up, MJ.
Back up.
Back up.
Back up. Back up.
Nope, nope. I know you're hungry.
No,
Don't
no.
get pissed at me. This
Nope.
is only going as far as it's going.
Yeah, you might want to just hand it over.
There are 110 gray wolves here.
Hi.
Some were rescued from the wild, but most were hand-raised by Peggy and Meg.
Come on, honey.
They're divided into packs, separated by chain-link fences. This pack is named after the 80s horror movie, Children of the Corn. So I saw the movie Children of the Corn, which is terrifying. Why is this pack called Children of the Corn?
For terrifying reasons. They attacked and killed their father and then tried to kill their mother. So
This pack?
This pack.
Why did they kill their father?
Opportunity.
Opportunity.
Yep.
Peggy told us the only reason we were able to sit among the Children of the Corn is because these wolves view her as the dominant member of their pack. Why is it important that in their mind you are dominant to them?
The reverse is quite dangerous. I know that they're capable of killing one another. Their jaw pressure is enormous.
By the way, even right now with the wolves coming up behind you, you're aware they're behind
Yes.
you.
We have to have eyes on the back of your head.
They're assessing who are we, who's dominant, could I take this person?
Absolutely. Yeah. And what I don't think they're planning anything, but I think should an opportunity afford, they're incredible opportunists.
Peggy works hard to secure the upper hand. If you have any doubt about her position as the alpha dog, just listen. Can you show me your howl?
Absolutely.
Goosebumps every time.
That was so cool.
So wouldn't you learn to howl if that happened?
What is the significance of the howl?
They use it to mark territory. They also will howl at intruders to get them to leave.
Becoming dominant over a wolf starts early. If a pup needs to be taken away from its mother for health or research purposes, Meg steps in.
Told you I'd bring a wolf puppy to visit.
When we were there with her in May, she was taking 1-month-old Philo everywhere, even the morning coffee run.
Sometimes if he gets really mouthy, ouch, like that, enough. Good boy. So it's just a little correction. I just pinch and I growl, and then the second he stops growling, I'm like, oh yeah, I whine to him and rub his belly and stuff.
That's
and
what his mother would do?
Exactly, yep. I'm sorry. It was some wolf that looked just like you that was back talking me there, not you.
But don't be fooled. Dominance has its limits. This is MJ. This is the dominant female.
Yes.
She was also hand-raised and likes a belly rub, too. That is, until she doesn't.
She's tolerating this with us. She's,
right.
I mean, she's,
Okay.
no, she's not. Okay, enough, okay. She just said stop.
I heard. To see just how far dogs have evolved because of domestication, at Duke University, Brian Hare has set up a puppy kindergarten.
Oh my goodness.
Students help raise Labrador puppies. They tag along, cruising the quad, going to basketball practice, even the track team's photo shoot. Part of the program is aimed at training service dogs for the organization Canine Companions. But there's research being done too. To compare the puppies to hand-raised wolf pups, Brian Hare's team runs them through a series of behavioral tests.
Look. Look. Okay. Yes, good job.
Watch again.
Puppy, look.
Notice how this puppy looks back and forth from the researcher to the bowl and then immediately follows her point.
Puppy, look.
Philo, the wolf puppy, might look like a dog, but watch him taking the same test.
Puppy, look. Okay. Okay,
So you can see Philo didn't follow the point here.
But a puppy at this age would.
Totally, exactly. So it looks like dog puppies come into the world kind of prepared to understand us in a way that wolf puppies are not because of domestication and interacting with us.
You've done testing with dozens of wolves. Overall, what have you found?
So you can spend 24 hours a day with, say, a wolf puppy. And even after you've done that for several months, they're not attracted to new people. They don't want to be with people. They want to be with wolves. That's not what happens in the case of dogs. As a species, they're actually what's known as xenophilic. They're attracted to new things and new people.
But how much of that is in their genes? Back in 2010, to figure that out, Hare's colleague, Bridget von Holt, a geneticist at Princeton, started comparing the DNA of dogs to wolves.
You've located some specific genes that lead to friendly behavior.
That's right. When we sequenced a bunch of dogs and a bunch of wolves, we used that to then search for mutations in the dog genome that only dogs had. And we came out with a really nice hot spot of mutations on chromosome number 6 in the dog genome. And that's what's highlighted here.
You can actually pinpoint genetic mutations in dogs that make that dog friendly to humans in a way that wolves are not.
Absolutely.
Wow.
This was a major finding, in my opinion.
And that is something that would have evolved over time.
That's right. So we can imagine back in the pre-dog era where there were wolves running around, and some of those wolves were maybe making their dens closer to human settlements. I hypothesize that if I could go and sequence those wolves, that they would carry maybe 2 of these mutations, and the rest of the wolves, maybe none.
Bridget von Holt calls these friendliness mutations.
So does my dog really love me, or is my dog just acting out on its genetic code?
She absolutely loves you. She has the genetic predisposition to wholeheartedly love you more than she probably can handle.
What came next in von Holt's research stunned her and us. She found the location of the friendliness mutations in dogs corresponds to the same genes that, when deleted in humans, cause a rare condition called Williams syndrome. Her study established one of the first genetic links in behavior between dogs and humans. Meet 36-year-old Ben Monkeba.
How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you,
What
sir?
a surprise.
Ben is no stranger to 60 Minutes. When he was 11 in 1997, Morley Safer met him doing a story on Williams syndrome.
I'm Morley.
More safer?
Yes, himself.
How are you?
People with Williams syndrome, like Ben, are often unusually outgoing and friendly, leading some to call it cocktail party personality.
What is it that makes you unique?
What makes me unique is my way of giving happiness to people, my friendliness, my kindness.
I gotta say, just meeting you, you made me smile the moment we met.
When people are happy, it makes me feel like I've achieved something.
Williams syndrome is a lifelong condition that often causes serious medical problems and intellectual disabilities. Ben's mom, Terry Monkeba, says Ben and others like him are so trusting and friendly they can sometimes be taken advantage of.
Just explain what is different about Ben genetically?
Sure. Ben is missing 25 genes on chromosome 7. And all of those genes line up. So that's 1/10 of 1% of their genetic makeup that is missing.
That deletion in Ben's DNA and others with Williams syndrome involves the same genes that contain the friendliness mutations discovered in dogs.
Ben, what do you think about that? About that there might be a link, friendliness in dogs, there might be a link to friendliness in humans.
It just makes me feel so happy and proud that dogs and people have similarities.
When the discovery was announced in 2017, Terry was head of the Williams Syndrome Association. She reached out to some members to see how they felt about it.
And one of the parents that I called said, "Are you kidding? I'm sure that if a tail was put on my son, it would be wagging all the time." And I think that really put it into perspective.
Understanding why dogs are so friendly, Brian Hare tells us, is helping unravel the mystery of how Homo sapiens came to be the most dominant species on Earth.
So what does our understanding of dog evolution tell us about human evolution?
I think what dog evolution teaches us is that actually how you get ahead in the game of life is you evolve a new way to be friendly that leads to a new form of cooperation. Humans 100,000 years ago, our species was not alone. There were at least 4 to 5 other human species. And the question then becomes, well, why are we the only one left? And we think, and what dogs point to, is that we were the friendliest species that ever evolved among humans, and that we survived because we are friendly.
Survival of the friendliest, a successful evolutionary strategy many humans today would be wise to remember.
When we come back, see how the genetic ties between dogs and humans may help us both in the fight against cancer. If you've ever lost a dog to disease, it may well have been cancer. Some 4 million dogs in the U.S. are diagnosed with it every year, often the same kinds of cancers humans get. We share many of the same genes with our canine companions, and for cancer research, that's an opportunity scientists are trying to make the most of. It's called Comparative Oncology. Now funded in part by the White House's Cancer Moonshot Initiative, doctors and scientists are studying naturally developing cancers, mostly in dogs, and using what they learn to speed potential treatments to them and us.
A dog show might seem like an odd place to conduct cancer research.
Can I see your face?
But this summer in Norwalk, Connecticut, that's where we met scientists from the National Institutes of Health, swabbing and collecting DNA samples from all sorts of breeds.
Oh, awesome.
They've been doing this for nearly 30 years and have collected about 40,000 samples so far.
Every few weeks we're at a dog show.
Leading the team is Elaine Ostrander, a senior geneticist at the NIH.
I always thought the National Institutes of Health study human diseases. Why is there scientists at the NIH studying dogs?
We are studying human disease, and we're doing it through dogs. And so dogs live in our world. They get all the same diseases we do. They eat our food. They're exposed to the same environmental pollutants. But they also have all the same genes that we do. And they have mutations in those genes that make them susceptible to everything you and I get, whether it's diabetes or cancer or neuromuscular diseases. Everything humans get, dogs get.
Ostrander says it's easier to study genes in dogs than humans because for the last 200 years they've been bred to emphasize specific traits. That's why they have all these distinct noses and tails and sizes, from Great Danes to Chihuahuas.
So before Victorian times, dogs were pretty much the same?
So there was some variation. We know that from fossil and archaeologic records, but almost all the variation you see running around in the rings today, that's all happened in the last 200 years.
It's really incredible that there's so much variety in that short of time.
Right, so that means it's probably going to be a really small number of genes responsible for most of the major differences.
It turns out just one gene determines if a dog has cream-colored hair or black. Other genes determine long hair or short. And Ostrander's team at the NIH has discovered some physical traits in dogs, like ear position, hold surprising clues about human health.
This was a study looking at prick ears versus floppy ears. And that's due to a mutation in one gene called MSRB3.
So just a mutation in one gene.
One gene, isn't that amazing?
Makes the difference between pointy ears and floppy ears.
Isn't that amazing? But what's really interesting about this story is that when this gene is perturbed or more dramatically mutated in humans, we get a form of deafness.
Really?
Yeah.
Ostrander told us some of the most promising genetic research in dogs involves cancer. Some breeds get certain types of cancers more often, making it easier for researchers to locate some of the genes responsible. Scottish Terriers, for instance, are about 20 times more likely to get bladder cancer than the average mixed-breed dog.
Now, if I were to look at a group of humans with bladder cancer, the story would be so much more complex. There would be different genes in different populations, there'd be different mutations, different contributions of environmental effects. So when I look in one breed, I get much simpler stories.
Dogs are diagnosed with many of the same cancers found in humans: lymphoma, melanoma, brain and breast cancer, and the deadly bone cancer, osteosarcoma.
And then what about the chemotherapy? How did he do with that?
University of Pennsylvania professor and veterinarian Nicola Mason oversees a national network of comparative oncology trials funded by the White House's Cancer Moonshot Initiative. She showed us just how similar osteosarcoma looks in dogs and people.
So what you can see, there's lots of purple dots here. These are the nuclei of the cancerous cells. They look identical.
Yeah, even a professional looking under a microscope would not be able to tell the difference between a dog with osteosarcoma and a human.
Correct. Incredibly similar.
Osteosarcoma is aggressive and malignant. More than 10,000 dogs in the United States are estimated to get it each year, but only about 1,000 people are, mostly children and young adults. Christy Gomes was diagnosed in 2020 when she was 11.
Which was the leg that was hurting?
Left.
So it was hurting up in your thigh?
It went up in like, yeah, here.
Christy was used to getting bruised on the soccer field, so she and her mom, Kathy Fetter, chalked it up to a sports injury. But after months of physical therapy, her doctor discovered osteosarcoma. That white mass had eroded most of Christy's thigh bone.
She comes in and she goes, Christy has a cancerous tumor in her femur. And I was like, what?
And I'm not like a crier, so I think I was processing it, and as I was processing it, I saw her cry, so then I started crying.
And then she was like, wait, I have cancer?
Doctors removed the remaining bone and replaced it with this 9-inch metal rod.
Good job.
Months of grueling chemotherapy withered Christy to 72 pounds. But her pediatric oncologist, Dr. Alyssa Rubin, told us the cancer came back, this time in Christy's lungs.
Patients, once their tumor comes back, are really high risk. Probably 80% of the time will get new tumors.
Have there been a lot of new treatments for osteosarcoma?
Unfortunately, no. We've been using the same chemotherapy for about the last 60 years or so.
Really? Is that because it's a rare form of cancer?
Yeah, it's harder to study because there's smaller numbers of patients to study in large trials. And also, since it's rare, not a lot of funding goes to a lot of trials for it.
But there were trials in pet dogs of an experimental immunotherapy treatment for osteosarcoma that began in 2012, led by Dr. Nicola Mason, using the bacteria Listeria.
This is Listeria, causes food poisoning. This particular Listeria has been genetically modified so that it is far less virulent.
The Listeria has also been modified to contain a specific protein called HER2 that's found on some osteosarcoma cells. Once injected into the dog's bloodstream, the Listeria awakens their immune systems, making them feel sick. It also triggers killer immune cells to patrol the body and destroy the cancerous cells. Sandy, a 9-year-old golden retriever, joined a nationwide trial in 2018. She's had her front leg amputated because of osteosarcoma. We met her this past August with her owner, Matt Olson. During the trial, Dr. Mason told us Sandy's immune system reacted to the Listeria just as she'd hoped.
Her body temperature started to increase, peaked around about 4 hours, and then started to drop down again. We sort of want to see that because it tells us that the immunotherapy is in fact stimulating her immune response, which is what we want to happen.
When Sandy was first diagnosed, her life expectancy with the standard care of amputation and chemotherapy was around a year. But that was 4 years ago.
There's no sign of cancer.
No.
And you've had 4 great years with her.
Yeah.
Did she get like extra treats when she got through it all?
She got everything. she still does,
She
man.
does. I bet she does.
Dr. Mason believes studying and treating naturally occurring cancers in pet dogs is more promising compared to using lab mice, which have to be artificially given cancer.
What we're trying to do is find a better way to determine which are the best treatments to take forward into the human.
This is not giving dogs rare forms of cancer and then studying them and testing them in a lab.
Exactly. So these are naturally occurring cancers. These are clinical trials, just as you or I would go onto a clinical trial if we had a cancer. And we do exactly the same in the veterinary field.
Results from the first Listeria trial in pet dogs were encouraging, showing the dogs tolerated the immunotherapy and that it significantly increased duration of survival time. Those results were submitted to the Food and Drug Administration.
Let's just confirm your birthday.
Last year, the FDA approved a phase 2 clinical trial using modified Listeria to treat young adults and children like Christy Gomes, who have recurrent osteosarcoma that spread to their lungs.
All right, do you want cartoons on the TV? Yes, please.
We were with Christy in August at Children's Hospital of Orange County when she received her third Listeria infusion.
That star in the dark circle, that's the needle going into your vein. Kind of cool, huh?
First, she was given medications that made her sleepy.
when the infusion's actually happening, do you remember it afterward, or do you basically sleep through it?
Just sleep. And then when I wake up, it hits like a truck.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You get a headache.
Mm-hmm. Bad headache. And nauseous. And I hate nauseous and headache. Two things I don't like is two things guaranteed.
Once she was dozing, the listeria started dripping into Christy's IV.
So it started now.
It has.
It's kind of amazing to think that you're both on the cutting edge of medicine.
I know. And I don't think she realizes how important this is.
An hour later, that truck Christy told us about, it hit her hard. But similar to what happened to Sandy, the golden retriever, the listeria appeared to awaken Christy's immune system. And after 10 minutes, her headache got better. A few hours later, she was able to leave the hospital. It's so amazing to me how similar humans' and dogs' immune response is.
We're very similar. I think perhaps more so than we might like to admit.
The National Cancer Institute is spending more than $20 million to analyze cancer samples from pet dogs all over the country and oversee comparative oncology trials to improve treatments in humans and dogs. One of their targets is brain cancer. This is Otto, a 7-year-old boxer who belongs to Dan Heffron. Otto was diagnosed with a deadly brain tumor in 2021.
Take the pointer finger on your left hand and touch your nose.
And this is Julie Hinseth, who's 59. She was diagnosed in 2020 with a similar, nearly incurable brain cancer, glioblastoma. She's had surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy, but the cancer came back. Julie and Otto enrolled in clinical trials at the University of Minnesota that use virtually the same experimental treatment. A neurosurgeon and veterinary surgeon teamed up to treat and operate on Otto and other dogs with brain cancer, and then shared their data about safety and dosing with a neuro-oncologist treating Julie and others.
Hi, Otto.
Julie, along with her husband, Doug, and daughter, Kelly, met Otto for the first time last spring. 2 patients, similar cancers, different species. What's it like to meet Otto?
Oh. I'm crying now.
Inflammation in Julie's brain makes it difficult for her to speak.
I never thought I would be having a conversation with a person and a dog who were having the same treatment.
Who have the same
It's incredible.
I didn't realize until now.
Yeah, and I didn't until after his first surgery.
Yeah.
What sort of an impact that he was going to have, not only for him, but other dogs and humans.
But 2 months after that meeting, Otto's symptoms worsened. It appeared his cancer returned. Dan took him for a final swim in his favorite river and then said goodbye to the dog he called his best friend and a medical pioneer.
Good, Otto.
Julie Hinseth's symptoms have now worsened as well. She stopped taking part in the trial and is spending time with her family. She told us she's grateful to have been part of an innovative interspecies battle to find new treatments.
I helped fight cancer.
It gives you satisfaction to know that you helped fight cancer.
Yeah.
I've had 2 dogs who have had cancer, and the idea that that cancer can be studied and treated and it can have an impact on humans is incredible.
Maybe the key, right?
Yeah, dogs may hold the key.
Christy Gomes, who's now well into her freshman year in high school, says she agrees.
We have to have more common things than we think.
It's not just that they need us for food and
It's not just that
there's
we're
a real
besties,
connection.
It's that we have to have more connection than that.
Christy's last scan showed no signs of cancer. She continues to get immunotherapy every 3 weeks.
Benjamin, come here.
Between treatments and homework, you'll find her with her Yorkie Benny, a gift from her mom. One more dog that's helping her in her recovery.